Whoa, where am I?
What do you see?
Some sort of really trippy pattern. Like in the center, I see a flower, looks like a lotus or peony, but isn't exactly either. Then the flower is surrounded by a richly decorated border, and the whole center part looks intense and Juno-esque. I'm not sure if that's the right word here.
I think that makes sense because Juno-esque does reflect the aesthetics of the Tang Dynasty.
Tang Dynasty? So I'm in China? Did I time travel?
What else do you see?
Uh, Buddhas, identical ones, and lots of them.
Identical?
Oh, wait, not exactly, but they're patterned. Each Buddha looks to be around 10 to 20 centimeters high, and each one is wearing a Cossack of a unique color. But then they're lined up according to color, and as a whole, I think the atmosphere that they create is a luxuriant and solemn one.
I think what you're looking at is a thousand Buddha motif.
Thousand Buddhas? That's actually a thing? In Mahayana Buddhism, there's the so-called thousand Buddhas of each of the three kalpas. Kalpas?
Kind of like eras. And the three Kalpas are the previous glorious Kalpa, the present Bhadra Kalpa, and the future Kalpas.
Huh, that's pretty cool. But now can you tell me what I'm looking at and where exactly on Earth am I?
Look around.
Wow, I'm in a cave and the trippy pattern that I was looking at is actually the ceiling. Whoa, look at these wall paintings. Are these spirits?
I think they're called apsaras.
Okay, so now I'm somewhat sure that I'm in China. I mean, the way flight is so elegantly depicted with clouds and long flowing ribbons, just absolutely remarkable. And beneath the apsaras, I see a preaching scene. But why are there missing pieces? That's a great question, and indeed one that's relevant to many caves in the Mogao Grottos. For this particular cave, I think you should ask Harvard University in the United States to explain. What does Harvard have to do with some cave in China? What do you mean, some cave in China? You really don't know where you are, do you? No, I mean, you haven't told me yet. You might have a better idea if you step out and look around. Whoa, that's a ginormous cliff. And what is that? A tower? That's the 9-story tower. In ancient times, grotto caves would have had halls in the front, or at least wooden structured eaves outside the entrance, so that when looked from afar, these grottos would look like layers of buildings and pavilions. But wooden structures are hard to preserve, so what exists now is this 9-story tower. I see, and you mentioned grotto caves, plural. This place is called Mogao Grottos. You're in a cave, one of 735 existing caves, in fact. These caves stretch 1,700 meters on a 40-meter high cliff face. And inside these 735 caves, we can find 45,000 square meters of murals. For reference, that's around 7 soccer fields. Wow, but where am I? Like on a map? I'm looking around and it looks like I'm surrounded by endless desert. This feels like a dream. So you're near Dunhuang in the western part of Gansu province. The history of Dunhuang dates all the way back to the Xia dynasty. And starting from the Han dynasty, Dunhuang used to be the west gate of China. So as you can see here, the Silk Road, which was the most important passage from ancient China to Xinjiang and Central Asia, passed directly through Dunhuang. And so Dunhuang became the metropolis for communication between the Han Empire and other nationalities. And after Buddhism came to China, Dunhuang also became a booming land of Buddhism. Essentially, Dunhuang was a place through which people must pass to go in or out of China. And so it's also a place where the cultures and ideas of the Chinese and those traveling in from the Western regions or on the Silk Road mixed. Right, and so when I look at the art in these grottos, you literally see before you the mixing and time evolution of ideas and culture. time evolution. Wow, that's amazing how these 735 caves are literally a historical timeline. So, who excavated the first cave? So, to answer that question, I'm going to start with a tiny primer on Buddhism. It was founded around 566 to 486 BC in India, and around 313 to 439 AD, Buddhism was pretty popular in northern China, and rulers highly advocated it and spent huge sums building temples and excavating grottos. One question you might have is, why would you need grottos when you already have temples? And part of the answer is that temples are usually in urban areas and are used for spreading doctrine, whereas monks need quieter environments for self-cultivation and assembly, and mountains or woods would provide that. While my focus today is Mogao Ku or Mogao Grottos in Dunhuang, they were not the only grottos in China. There were so many, and some examples of other famous ones are Tianlongshan Shiku, Maijishan Shiku, Xiangtangshan Shiku, Yungang Shiku, and Longmen Shiku. Anyway, so back to your question about the first grotto. The legend goes that someday in year 366, a wandering monk called Yue Zun arrived at a highland and entered meditation. And when he opened his eyes, he saw thousands of beams of golden lights, and amidst them, thousands of Buddhas showed up. And so he believed that this miracle was a sign that he should settle down and do further cultivation. And so he had some artisans excavate a grotto, and this here is believed to be the first grotto that he had excavated. So you'll notice that this is very different from the cave that you woke up to find yourself in. It's very small. It's only 1.5 meters high, with a center aisle that's less than a meter wide and 2 little rooms on each side, which only have enough space for 1 person. So that is the beginning of the Mogao Grottos. The one that you woke up in was built in the Tang Dynasty. And the next time I see you, because I don't have time to do it here, and I think this deserves its own little rant, I will tell you about how the styles of these grottos transitioned from this first grotto to the one that you woke up in to the last ones that were built in the Yuan Dynasty. Today, I want to use what little time I have left to go back to your previous question about why there are missing pieces in the wall paintings in the cave that you woke up in. So essentially, there was an American called Langdon Werner who studied art history and in 1923 was teaching at Harvard. At that time, Harvard was planning to expand the collections of its Fogg Art Museum, and the museum director was interested in Oriental art, and so he sent an expedition team to China, and Werner was selected. When they first went to China, Werner first headed for the Juyan Yizhi, or the ancient site of Karakatto, but the Russians and British had already taken all the portable treasures, including wall paintings, years before from there. So he turned his eyes to Dunhuang, and he brought a special adhesive with him. So we know that this was premeditated, and he used it to literally tear the paintings off of the wall. And when he went back to the US, he separated the paintings from the plasters using chemicals. In addition to tearing off exquisite wall paintings from 5 Tang Dynasty caves, including the one you were in, he also grabbed many painted sculptures. I really don't know how anybody thought this would be okay. I mean, especially if you claim to be an art historian, how can you literally destroy the epitome of art history so carelessly and so intentionally? That's absolutely despicable, and somebody please correct me if I'm wrong, but I found one of the taken pieces on the Harvard Museum website, and I don't see any apology or even any mention of the disgusting means by which it was acquired. Actually, below the piece, there was a little description, and the only thing that it says is that this piece is from Mogao Cave 320, Dunhuang, Gansu Province, dating back to the Tang Dynasty. It was acquired during the first expedition to China, led by Langdon Werner, and that's it. And by reading this, I would not have known the methods using which this Langdon Werner man acquired these pieces. Somebody please tell me that I'm wrong and that there is an apology on that site somewhere that I just haven't found. Well, in contrast to these soi-disant scholars who so carelessly destroy history, I want to tell you about a true scholar, one I think more people should know about. Actually, I didn't know anything about Mogao Grottos a week ago, but I stumbled upon a talk by Fan Jingshi 先生 and was just absolutely stunned, not only by Dunhuang, but specifically by the stories of Dunhuang as she told them, with her glittering eyes full of wisdom, her great sense of humor, and just her love for Dunhuang that emanated from the screen. I linked the talks I had found below, and I just want to reiterate that she is truly everything that I would imagine a true scholar to be. After her talk, I found this book written by her, The Art of Mogao Grottos in Dunhuang, A Journey into China's Buddhist Shrine. And that's where I started learning everything I told you about today, as well as everything I will tell you about Dunhuang the next times I see you. So a little bit about Professor Fan Jingshi, who is truly an inspiring scholar and just a badass woman in academia who I, as a young grasshopper, feel like I can look up to. After graduating from Peking University in 1963, Professor Fan Jingshi went to Dunhuang, fell in love with it, and devoted 57 years and counting to Dunhuang. She was the director of Dunhuang Academy and one of the biggest champions of digital Dunhuang. If you go to edunhuang.com, you can drown yourself in marvel. They even have panoramas of some caves, so you can get the experience of walking inside them without actually walking inside them. And one great thing about virtual tours is that if too many people toured these caves in person, you actually contribute to the deterioration of wall paintings. Professor Fan Jingshi published, contributed to, and edited countless works on understanding Dunhuang, communicating Dunhuang, and preserving Dunhuang. And I think we cannot talk about Dunhuang without talking about her. I hope that knowing scholars like her exist will help you restore your faith in humanity. I cannot believe that I did not know about this badass woman before today. In the West, I've heard the word Dunhuang mentioned a few times, and each time it was some trivial detail, and each time it had a Western scholar's name associated with those details. I really hope that more people can hear about the life and work of this admirable, amazing, just absolutely inspiring Chinese scholar. You said you had more stories about Dunhuang to share, right? How can I find you next time? Well, if you want to see me again, you can just fall asleep in class again.